you should also have an Instagram and TikTok account and at least publish Facebook and YouTube, Facebook Reels and YouTube Shorts. Why? Because you create one piece of content that it's virtual, this short form virtual content. You create one piece and then you post it on, as long as is within the 1 minute mark, you can literally post it on all platforms, including Twitter and LinkedIn.
Hey, let me tell you the truth. It's not about who you know, but who knows you. Brando, it's your story. You can rewrite it if you so choose. It's your life. You decide those moves. Brando, you want to talk about getting the bag? He built a 7-figure brand from scratch. Brando, it's the Brand Up Podcast, but you already know. Enough talking, bro. Let's start this show. Brando.
What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Brand Up Podcast. Today, I'm actually addressing the $1 million question. Do you actually need a personal brand? And I'm going to try to not be biased because obviously the name of the show is the Brand Up Podcast, right? But the main things that I'm going to cover today is who really needs a personal brand. So we're going to go through a lot of different types of businesses, athletes, and a lot of other people in between that do, in my opinion, do need a personal brand. Then we're going to cover who doesn't really need it, but they could actually implement it if they want to. And then the third most important thing, in my opinion, when it comes to this topic is how to separate a personal brand versus a business brand. And also I'll dive a little bit into the pros and cons of having a personal brand versus having a business brand, right? So let's jump right into the first topic. Who really needs a personal brand? Because let's face it, right? Like if we going back in time, I don't know, maybe 15, 20 years ago or so. I mean, business has been around forever, but this whole, concept of having a personal brand, it's a little bit fresh, kinda, maybe not, depending at what point in time you consume this episode and at what point in time you even put this tag on a person, right? Like a personal brand, like before, maybe you were looking at an actor or a singer and you just knew that they were an actor or a singer, right? But if that person also becomes a business owner and now they build different things, but they still use their name, they still use their brand, that's what separates someone that is just a singer or just an actor versus someone that's actually building a brand because it's also, giving their take on some different topics, right? Like somebody that's just a singer and maybe on their YouTube channel, they only have songs versus someone that maybe also post vlogs and maybe they have a podcast on the same YouTube channel, or even if they have a podcast on a separate channel, but their celebrity status still comes from their personal brand, if that makes sense, right? So maybe before it was not called a personal brand, it didn't have this kind of tag, this stigma of, oh, you're a personal brand, because now you also do speaking engagements and other things like that, right? So now maybe before a singer, at some point in time they were doing, I don't know, they were having a speech at Grammys or whatever, right? You didn't necessarily thought about that person as being a personal brand. It was just the same actor that, or the same singer that you liked, right? So let's dive into who really needs a personal brand, in my opinion. So we have this category of authors and, in my opinion, podcasters, content creators. They kind of fall, we all fall under the same umbrella, in my opinion, right? Like it's this whole, I guess, quote unquote, online business umbrella, right? Like if you're an author and selling ebooks, all of a sudden you have an online business. If you're a podcaster and you sell advertising, or you sell some type of trainings or service or some type of coaching, right? You fall under the umbrella of online business. You're a content creator, you publish videos, you publish content online, even if you're a blogger or a TikToker, you create content, maybe you do brand deals, boom, you have an online business, right? So, and then we also have this niche of online coaches, right? And then we have the sub niches of business coaches, then we have fitness trainers. But it's a sub-niche of the same niche pretty much, right? So all of these, in my opinion, fall under the same umbrella. And you do need a personal brand. Like as an author, right? We all know, and if you didn't know before, you find out now, as an author, you're not going to sell. You're not going to make, you can probably sell, tens of thousands of books, but realistically, you're not going to make money selling books. You're going to use that book for status. You're going to use that book to land speaking engagement. You're going to use that book to land podcast appearances. You're going to use that book to maybe sell some type of coaching. Like let's say you have a 12 chapter book. Now you're going to turn those into some type of video trainings. Same thing applies for podcasters, right? Like, for example, I have a podcast, you're listening to one now, and then I also have a coaching program, right? So, and then if you're a podcaster that's just starting out and you don't have a service to sell or a coaching package or a course, things like that, then you can sell sponsorships, advertising spots to your show, as long as you have a number of downloads that's required by every industry has different types of numbers that they look for. Content creators, same thing, right? Like if you've been a YouTuber for a long time and now maybe you can teach other people how to become YouTubers, now you're selling a program, right? So all of these different things, having a personal brand will help be monetized so much easier. Because again, you can have a YouTube channel, you can have a podcast, but maybe your name is not heavily attached to that. So for example, let's say you have a podcast that doesn't even have the cover image with your face on it for whatever reason, right? Like, for example, one of the most well-known podcasters in the online space, in the online marketing game, Pat Flynn, he has a lot of different podcasts. Like he has 2 under his personal brand. One where he mostly features previous customers that purchased his products and services in the past, and now he features them by providing before and after working with them, or even just addressing some type of Q&A on the podcast. And then he has his main show where he's been podcasting for a long time. But then he also has 2 other, as far as I know, 2 other podcasts that are not even related to what his brand is attached to. Like, for example, his main space is the online marketing space, and he has products and services around that. But then one of his podcasts have to do with, I think it's a restaurant. What is it called? I think it's a restaurant type of podcast or something similar. I can't remember now what it's called. And then he also has a YouTube channel around Pokemon cards and things like that, which again are not attached to his personal brand. It's not, he hasn't used his audience to promote those 2 because the audiences don't overlap. Maybe a little bit, but not too much, right? Like maybe out of his million listener audience, maybe he has, 2, 3, 5% that would overlap into the other 2. But anyway, I digress. So, if you start a podcast and you don't use your face on the cover, maybe you should. But at the same time, if you're thinking, hey, maybe I don't want to do this. This is just a passion of mine. Maybe I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Maybe I do this for passion and I don't necessarily want to monetize it. Maybe I don't use my face in it. That's totally fine too. But in my opinion, if you want to turn it into a business and you want to make money doing this, you do need a personal brand. So as an author, if you want to make money with your book, you should build your personal brand on other platforms, not just on Kindle and paperbacks, right? Like you shouldn't just be an author. You should also have a podcast or a YouTube channel, or both if you have the capacity, right? Not at the beginning, but gradually moving into each step. You should also have an Instagram and TikTok account and at least publish Facebook Reels and YouTube Shorts. Why? Because you create one piece of content that it's virtual, this short form virtual content. You create one piece and then you post it on, as long as it's within the 1 minute mark, you can literally post it on all platforms, including Twitter and LinkedIn, right? So Facebook Reels are the only ones that do not allow you to post longer than 1 minute. As a reel, you can still post regular videos, even if they're vertical, longer than 1 minute, but as an actual reel, it's only up to 1 minute. So you know, as long as you create the 1 minute video virtual format, now you can literally just post it or have somebody help you post it on all different platforms at once, right? So authors, podcasters, content creators, online coaches, online trainers, your fitness coach, your business coach, you do need a personal brand to connect with an audience at a much deeper level, for the end result being, all right, I'm going to build this as a business. If it's just a passion project for, you know, you only plan to do it for 3-6 months, or you only plan to do it, let's say, hey, I'm 20 years old and I'm just starting into this whole online game. I'm going to create a TikTok account and post 3-6 months fitness content, and I'm going to use I'm going to do the username and the name something with fitness instead of using my name, and I'm not going to just put my face in the profile. I'm just going to use my six-pack abs photo, right? That's a whole different story. But if you want to turn it into a business and you want to create and you want to generate income, you do need a personal brand. You do need to, you know, create content on all these different platforms as much as you can without burning out. What does that even mean, right? Like at first, if you can only do podcast, like audio episodes, that's totally fine. Do that, right? Then when the bandwidth allows you and you have a little bit of a budget, you know, put a phone next to that mic and record those audio episodes as videos as well, and then just send it to somebody on Fiverr to edit it for you, right? And now you have both video and audio content to post for your brand. But now you are a podcaster, and even now there's services that literally will take your podcast and chop it up into smaller and shorter episodes. Now, is that the best way to post on Instagram and TikTok? In my opinion, it's not the best use, but instead of not posting anything else, it is a good idea to start that way, right? So for example, I've had, I don't know, probably at this point, 10 to 20 requests on my IG DMs of companies and freelancers willing to take my long form podcast and chop it up into smaller, 1 minute to 2 minute shorter form episodes to have for IG, Facebook, and all the rest, right? So the reason that I think it's not necessarily the best way is because, it's hard to start these videos with a hook every single time. And when you don't do that, you lose the attention of the viewer so much faster, and then you're not going to get the amount of views that you think you will. And because of that, you're going to feel like it doesn't make sense for you to post too much. So, or you think it doesn't make sense for you to keep doing that. So again, everything is better than just not doing anything, right? I was talking to someone the other day when I was training jiu-jitsu. I said, well, I wish I could train 7 days instead of 6, but I need 1 day to recover. And the other guy said, well, I wish I could train 2 days instead of 1 a week, right? And I said, well, 1 is better than nothing, 2 is better than 1, 3 is better than 2, and so on and so forth. So the same thing applies here, right? It's very important to not let anything around you stop you from at least try the next level, right? So again, if you have a podcast that is just audio, that's totally fine. Keep doing that. But then when you have a little bit of bandwidth, add at least 2-3 episodes, shorter episodes, even without you doing much. Just hire somebody to just chop it up. Now again, it's not the best way in my opinion, but it is a way to add a little more content, right? So again, going back to the question, who really needs a personal brand? Authors, podcasters, content creators, online coaches, online trainers, regardless if it's business or fitness related. In my opinion, they all need a personal brand. Next category, athletes. Again, maybe you are a boxer, a kickboxer, an MMA fighter. Maybe you are a jiu-jitsu competitor, right? You should build your personal brand not just through photos from competitions and results that you get competing. You should also have video content and and audio, one or the other or both, if you can afford the time to do it. Again, in my opinion, and I'll link this previous episode that I did, which is the 3 steps to build confidence when you start creating content, and has to do with start with audio first, because it's the simplest way to get started. Again, you don't need to, make sure that you look good on camera. You don't need, like, if you're a man, not being shaved or not having the most fresh cut, it's not going to matter, because if it's audio, it's audio. If you're a girl, of course, wearing makeup, doing your hair, having lashes on, things like that. I know all about this because my wife, every time when she has to record a video, the amount that it takes to get ready, it's incredible, right? So because of that, video might feel way more daunting for someone to get started. Whether audio, it's so much simpler. You just need a microphone, and if you're a Mac, use GarageBand. If you're on a Windows device, you use I think it's called Cool Edit Pro, the software that it's completely free, or maybe I'm wrong. I haven't used the Windows in a while, but anyway, I'll try to link the resources in the show notes. But again, as an athlete, you should create content both around the sport that you are doing, but you can also do reactions, right? Like you can give your, like if you're any kind of martial artist or athlete, or for that matter, regardless if it's martial arts or not. I mean, you can be a chess player, you can be any type of sport, like from gymnastics to swimming to football player, basketball player, it doesn't really matter. Having a brand, having a personal brand, and having an audience, it's going to be a huge game changer when it comes to you getting a contract. Actually, a friend of mine and an online coach that I hired, I think it was last year when I was training MMA, I was sending him sparring videos of me, and then he was giving me advice on how to improve it and things like that. I still train, but I'm not getting coached by him anymore. But the point of the matter was, he shared with me the fact that he was actually able to land a multi-six-figure contract with one championship as an MMA fighter because of his YouTube channel. So he had at the time, I think, 350,000 subs. And then his audience was really engaged, like they were commenting a lot. He was sharing a lot of advice about how to improve your fitness and how to become a better martial artist from a beginner standpoint. Like, if it was geared towards people that always wanted to train, but maybe they were just finding excuses like age, things like that. And then eventually he ended up actually even selling, like he's selling courses now about self-defense. He's selling courses to a lot of different audiences, people that are just starting out. He's also selling more like advanced courses for MMA pros. But anyway, bottom line is, he knew how to build his brand, his personal brand, because it's related to his name. But also he has a little bit of a channel name that explains what he does. So the channel name is MMA Shredded, which kind of gives you the idea, get a shredded physique by practicing MMA. So eventually, if he wants to sell the YouTube channel at some point in time, he can. He would just remove the name of the channel, and he might be able to land a 7-figure deal just for that YouTube channel alone, right? So especially for athletes, because actually, unless you really get to the level of, like, if we're talking about MMA, unless you're getting, access to like UFC contracts and one championship and other and Bellator and other organizations like this, you're not, and even to that level, not everybody's getting paid really well. And it's a risky career. You can always be put on the sidelines for, months, if not years, after an injury or something like that. So having a personal brand actually really help you to develop some type of income in case, God forbid, something happens and you do get injured, right? So for athletes, it's even a bigger plus because they don't think necessarily from a business standpoint how they can monetize that. Another category, it's musicians, right? Like musicians nowadays, they don't even need the record label necessarily to sign them up. They can just make a ton of money combining TikTok and YouTube for the amount of AdSense that they get from there. Also, on top of that, they can literally sell meet and greets. They can sell, nowadays, between TikTok helping you go viral with a song and then taking that audience to YouTube, you immediately can build a business online so much faster as long as you can focus on build. Look at Charli D'Amelio, the amount of brand recognition she's getting nowadays, and she just started on TikTok, right? Then another category is artists, like makeup artists, lash artists. We mentioned martial artists, tattoo artists. All of these niches can benefit so much if they are focusing on building an actual personal brand, and they don't just focus on a portfolio type of work, just photos of their work shared on Instagram and other platforms. Putting a little bit of effort into creating a show, creating a podcast, or a YouTube channel, or both if it's possible, can go a long, long way. Now, let's go to point number 2. Who doesn't really need it? In my opinion, local businesses, brick-and-mortar companies, do not necessarily need a personal brand. Like, for example, if we're talking about plumbing, construction, roofing, commercial cleaning, moving and storage, these type of businesses don't necessarily need it. But for example, I took this, in my opinion, he's the smartest person when it comes to personal branding in the local brick and mortar space. His name is Roger Wakefield, and if you go on YouTube and you type plumber YouTuber, his name will pop up, because he really built, I think he's now like 500,000 subs on YouTube, reacting to a lot of different videos. So he put his personality. So yeah, he his actual business was I don't even know if he does plumbing anymore, to be honest, but his personality and the way that he actually put it on camera, it's incredibly smart. And then he started doing reaction videos to other plumbers that posted videos, and then some of them are funny, some of them are really informational, some of them are like really serious videos. But the fact that he put his personality, people started to like really love him as a person. So he built his personal brand. Like, people know that he was a plumber. I don't even know if he actually still does the work as a service, or if he has a plumbing company now. But the fact that he used that to build his personal brand on YouTube, in my opinion, is very, very smart. So again, local businesses don't necessarily need it, but the owners of those companies, in my opinion, should start focusing on building their personal brand because of this main reason. Adding another source of income in the scenario where they decide, all right, I'm sick and tired of this type of business. I've been running for the last 10, 20 years. It's been providing for my family for this amount of years, but I'm done with it. So maybe you want to exit it, maybe you want to sell it, maybe you want to sell your part to maybe a business partner, things like that, and then focusing on building a personal brand. outside of that business, it's a really smart choice in the event of deciding to exit their main source of income. So again, they don't necessarily, like the business itself doesn't need it, but the owners of those businesses, in my opinion, they should. And now point number 3, how to separate a personal brand versus a business brand, and also some pros and cons to this. So, of course, a personal brand, it's almost impossible, if not impossible, to be sold. Like, of course, you wouldn't buy a business of somebody else's name, especially with, their face being there, things like that, because it doesn't make sense, right? Like, you just think about the channel Tony Robbins, right? Yes, he might sell his event business because, out of his, I think 5-day events, it's only a day and a half that he speaks. 3 days and a half, somebody else speaks on them. So let's say he gets an incredible high offer for those events with some terms of him still being on those events. Yeah, he might consider selling that part of the business, but his face of, people will still want him to be part of those events, at least partially, in order to still show up, right? So that's kind of the cons. Like, you're not able to exit necessarily a personal brand. I mean, if you just don't want to create content anymore, you just stop creating it, but your brand will always live online. You'll always be there, right? Versus a business brand, you can always exit it. Like I just mentioned this example of the YouTube channel in the MMA space, MMA Shredded. Like, he could technically sell the YouTube channel, like his personal brand was still there, because everybody knows MMA Shredded as the YouTube channel, but his name can be removed from the channel, and other people can create content around that. Another example is a good friend of mine, Shan Cannell, his YouTube channel, they're one of the biggest in the video creator space on YouTube. His YouTube channel is called Think Media. And a lot of his team members are creating content for the YouTube channel. So if he leaves tomorrow, or if he decides, hey, I want to sell this channel for a 7-figure deal to somebody else, and maybe that deal includes him creating, 100 videos or 12 videos or 4 videos a month, whatever, with his name on the with him being on camera, that can still happen, right? But his personal name is not necessarily attached to that YouTube channel, right? Now, another example is, this is one of my favorite case studies, when I help my wife. So my wife is a lash artist, and she has a lash salon, and she has a separate type of business where she teaches other women that want to become lash artists. So I said to her, all right, in order, and this kind of happened almost as an afterthought, because when COVID hit, her actual salon was shut down. So I said to her, all right, now you already have a skill set. Let's look on YouTube, and I'll probably do another podcast just sharing exactly the behind the scenes process of how we did that. But eventually she started creating videos on YouTube. She started posting. She got a lot of great feedback. And then based on that, she started selling actual trainings and certifications. So we focused on building her personal brand as being the lash trainer, and then the salon itself, it's under a different name. So the salon itself, it's called Limit Lashes, which is the salon which offers lash services. Then she has Limit Lashes as a lash brand. So she has a line of products. I don't even know at this point. I think it's like 20 different types of products that her students need to also they get this kit when they do the trainings, but then also it's another source of income, because people buy these products as recurring because they need it for their other salons, right? So we built her personal brand around her name being the lash trainer, And then the salon's brand, it's a business brand, which is, Limit Lashes, again, the salon itself. And then the lash product line, even though it's the same name as the salon, it's a separate entity pretty much, because both of these can technically be exited from. Let me explain. If we decide at some point in time we want to franchise the salon, we can do that, and we can sell franchises with almost like a lash in a box type of business, right? And that's doable for sure. Then if we want just to sell the salon itself, if my wife says I don't want to deal with that anymore, then we can sell that. Then if the lash product line, if she decides, hey, I don't want to deal with manufacturers anymore, I don't want to deal with products anymore, let's sell that. That can be sold as a standalone business. And then her passion and her main source of income now being the lash certification lash trainings, because that's her personal brand being built around, right? So this, in my opinion, it's a very simple, well, I guess it's simple, but it's also complex from a business standpoint, right? But it's an easy to understand, in my opinion. So it's a simple process, but it's more easy to understand when it comes to how do you separate your personal brand versus the business brand. You can make them either kind of interact with each other. Like in this case, the business brand offers services to an audience. The personal brand teaches a different segment of the audience to become lash artists, so technically they can become employees. But then the brand, the e-commerce brand of the products, can technically interact with both, right? Because the products are also being sold during trainings, and the products are also being used in the salons. Now, in this case, it just happened to be interacting with each other, but they don't necessarily have to all the time, right? So, for example, in the previous case with the local brick-and-mortar, and again, this is a local brick-and-mortar, or at least it started as a local business, and then it kind of branched it out into both an e-commerce arm of the business and then the personal brand side of things. But then the plumbing brand, the plumber, Roger Wakefield, right? His YouTube channel, it's not attached to his plumbing business at all. Like if he sold or if he's selling the actual plumbing business, it doesn't affect at all his YouTube channel, right? So I hope you can take this episode almost like a masterclass when it comes to personal branding and how to even look at it, who needs it, how to apply it in your own scenario, in your own business, in your own life, pretty much, right? Like, regardless what you do, you kind of have a personal brand already. Like when your friends talk about you, when you're out in the room, that's a personal brand. Maybe you don't monetize it, but it's there, right? Maybe you just have pictures with cats and dogs. Like, for example, I have a TikTok account, I think it's like 120,000 followers, that is just me and my dog, right? It's not like my name is not in there, but my dog is the main character of that account, and people just love it. So again, and the pet industry can also be plugged in there. Like who really needs a personal brand? Your pet needs a personal brand as well, and you can actually monetize it and make serious income with it. So again, let's do a quick recap. We talked about who really needs a personal brand, and then we went through a pretty wide variety of different niches, from authors, podcasters, content creators, athletes, online coaches, trainers, musicians, artists, things like that. And point number 2, we talked about who doesn't really need it, and we mentioned the local business sector, the brick and mortar, and then we also gave example the plumber YouTuber Roger Wakefield. And then the third, in my opinion, the most important, how to separate a personal brand versus a business brand, and also some pros and cons. So, as always, I like to give you guys 2 tasks to do. One, at the end of this episode, figure it out in which of these categories you fit in. And again, you don't necessarily have to fit in one now, or you can fit in multiple. And then make a list of the things that you can do to develop your personal brand outside of your main thing. So if you're an athlete, if you're an author, if you're a podcaster, if you're creating content, if you're a makeup artist, what other channels can you use to improve your personal brand? So that's the task number 1 to do right after this episode. And then the long-term task is make sure you start implementing the content creation strategy that I talk about in, I think it's episode 50. I'll try to link it in the show notes below. It's about the 3 steps to build confidence when creating content. But even if you already have confidence, that episode I feel like can help you a lot to implement this into your personal brand strategy moving forward. All right, guys, so I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know we covered a lot of things, but in my opinion, they're really valuable and you can really, really benefit from this as long as you implement it, of course. So the one thing that I like to ask you guys, well, number 1, if you have a question specifically around these topics that I'm doing these solo episodes, please go to my Instagram, and I'm at Marian Esanu, MarianVesanu. Of course, I'll link it in the show notes below. So shoot me a DM and let me know you're listening to Brand Up Podcast on whatever platforms you do, and ask me the question there. Or if you go to www.thebrandupshow.com, you'll be able to submit your question there. And don't forget, the best way to support the show, if you enjoy these topics and you enjoy these solo episodes and my interviews, the simplest way is just hit that subscribe button. If you're on Apple Podcast, right on the top corner of your device you should see a plus sign or some type of follow button. They always change it. The most recent one that I looked at a few days ago, it has the plus sign. And just rate and review the show if you enjoy it. Just let me know what do you like, what you don't like. I'm always up for the feedback. So thanks a lot for listening, guys, and I'll catch you in the next episode.